10 years from now, I don't know whether Pakistan can exist with this war on terror, because 90 billion rupees a month are being sunk in this war on terror. The total health budget of Pakistan is 120 billion. It's, in 3 years, they have more, in 3 months, just the cost of this war is more than the education budget of Pakistan. There's more poverty. Forget about cricketers not coming into Pakistan. The businessmen have to go to Dubai to hold a meeting with investors. There's flight of capital there. The police cannot protect the people because the police is protecting itself from the Taliban. So, unless there is an understanding of the issue, if the army is taking the biggest battering in this war. General Kiani, in all parties conference, he begged the politicians. He said, look, we are only holding our positions. Where is the political process? He's asking us, he says, where's the political process? He says, we've done what we were supposed to do. We've done a military operation, but we're stuck there now. 140,000 Pakistani soldiers are stuck in the tribal areas. Every day our soldiers are dying. Every day our citizens are dying. It's costing us the earth to maintain these operations. So, the idea that Pakistan is playing a double game, if Pakistan's army is playing a double game with the Taliban, then what is the NATO force, the greatest military machine in the history of mankind, what is it doing in Afghanistan then? Is it also playing a double game there? Why aren't they winning there? So there's a history there. Look at the Russians. The Russians killed 1 million Afghans. And in the end, you read the accounts of the Soviet officers, and they were saying, after killing 1 million people, they said, we didn't know who the enemy was. The women were fighting, the 15-year-olds were fighting in the end. So read the British accounts of Afghanistan. There were 3 Afghan wars, all ended up in disasters. So the idea that the Americans, the NATO forces are not winning in Afghanistan because a few hundred Rambos are going across Pakistan border and not defeating this 140,000, one of the greatest military machines. It's a myth. It's fooling their own people. So please remember this. This war has no military solution. Please understand this. Einstein's definition of madness, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We will be fighting here for 10 years. There's not going to be a result. All the Taliban have to do to win is not to lose. But meanwhile, our society is getting radicalized. Every day, the society is getting polarized. There's more extremism today than ever in our history.
Obviously, the U.S. has a significant interest in Pakistan, given its current war on terror. Besides drone attacks, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing U.S.-Pakistan relations, and what are your solutions to these challenges?
You see, Pakistan and US must have a completely different relationship. One based on dignity and self-respect for Pakistan. It can only happen. It can only happen when our ruling elite stops begging and scraping and borrowing for the country. It can only happen if you live with dignity and self-respect and stop begging and stop borrowing. The most awful thing for all of us Pakistanis is the most shameful thing. First, our ruling elite took dollars to produce jihadis, then it took dollars to kill the same guys. It is so shameful what we have done to our own country. These people were first trained to do jihad against foreign occupation. And then and we made a lot of money. Our ruling elite made a lot of money out of this. The same ruling elite then takes money to kill those people. So it was obvious that the country was going to suffer. So the idea that we in Pakistan can live with dignity and self-respect if we keep on begging and borrowing, selling our people. We sold our people to the Americans. How can you have respect? If a country does not respect its own people, how can it expect respect from anyone else?
Question, please, on this side.
I gave a couple of books. I hope you get a chance to read them. My question is, one of the core problems of Pakistan is a feudalism. And till we tackle that issue, nothing is going to happen in Pakistan.
It's
Your
terrorism?
feudalism.
Or feudalism?
Feudalism. And your
But we
party
must
can...
move off terrorism now.
Yeah, of course, because terrorism probably is a short-term problem.
Let me just tell you about feudalism. The British brought in the feudal landlords. Lord Cornwallis came up with the permanent settlement of land where the Jagirs were permanently settled by feudal lords. Before that, the Jagirs always reverted back to the king the moment the Jagirdar died. So they were awarded for services rendered to the state, and once the person died, the Jagir went back to the Mughal king. What the British did was they made permanent settlements of these Jagirdars. Why did they do it? Because they wanted control of India. They did not want to give independence to India. And so they destroyed the village community system. The Jagirdars took over the land that belonged to the Jagirdar. Before it was common land for the people. And the old local government system that existed in India for centuries was destroyed. So how do you tackle feudal system? Bring back the local government system. Empower people at the village level. Do not allow any interference of politicians in the police system. The moment a feudal cannot have his own thanedar, his power is gone. The moment he cannot have his own patwari, he's gone. So therefore we need reforms at the local government level. We need to empower the people, put the police station, the thane under the village communities, give them the schools, give them their health service. Development should be done through the village communities. This whole system will crumble.
Next question from
most of the people that are sitting in front of you, they just don't even know if they are going to vote, in this election or not. So just because Election Commission of Pakistan hasn't done anything yet, and there are only 4 months remaining for that. So we all know that it's only going to benefit PTI if the overseas people get a chance to vote. So what are you going to do about it?
PTI's petition to the Supreme Court, through that petition, the overseas Pakistanis have been given the right to vote, but they haven't developed a mechanism how the overseas Pakistanis will vote. What we plan to do is to go back to the Election Commission and give them a way how overseas Pakistanis can participate. So Tehreek Insaf is developing that mechanism. But having said that, the government will try everything to block the overseas Pakistanis from voting because they know that 90% of them are PTI. I'm not sure of the other 10% anyway. It's possible they are.
Next question.
I have 2 questions for you. The first is related to corruption. Now, I understand that's one of your top agendas, and for you to tackle it the way that you perceive to tackle it, you need a majority in parliament. But supposing, I do hope that you become the Prime Minister of Pakistan and you win a majority. But if you only have 30% of parliament, for example, and you are in opposition, how are you going to work with the very politicians that you've been criticizing in a productive way? That's one. And
Just a minute. Do you mean if I need coalition? Is that what you mean?
if you're sitting
Oh,
in the
yeah.
opposition,
If in the opposition.
majority. And my second question is more specific. It's related to population control. Now, I understand that's a population control or family planning. I understand it's not a very popular topic with politicians because there are a lot of political implications and religious implications. We haven't had a population census since 1998. By 2050, we're going to be the 6th most populous country in the world, and that has implications for women's rights, education, health, the economy, you name it. And it's not something that's being recognized at a political level. So
Okay.
what is your policy position on that?
Okay. Corruption, 5 steps. Number 1, the leadership must declare the assets, put them on the website. Everyone should be able to see the assets and the taxes given by the leadership. Number 1, independent NAB. The NAB must be an independent body which is not under the government. Number 3, devolution. You must have devolved spending. The more centralized spending, the more the corruption. The more devolved, the less chance. And conflict of interest law. You cannot build factories once you come into power. There has to be a conflict of interest in Pakistan because unfortunately, people come to power to do business in Pakistan. Population is a serious issue in Pakistan. But anywhere where population growth has been brought down has been two reasons. Primary healthcare and primary education. These are the two, and female education especially. So these are two ways you bring the population growth down. It is no longer a taboo subject because Iran has done it, Bangladesh has done it, Pakistan can also do it. So it is a question of awareness, educating the people, especially females. And what else did you say?
Pretty much
That's it?
Thank you.
Next question, please, Mr. Sir.
I just wanted to ask you that we have been living in America. We are Pakistani-born Americans.
Can you speak up in the mic, please?
And this country has given us so much. And most of your policies and what I've heard on you on TV, a lot of your policies are not with America. And how do you expect us to go with you, help us, because our image depends in this country upon the Pakistan-American relationship. So we have to come out and be proud Pakistanis.
Look, let me just say one. As someone who went out of Pakistan at the age of 18 and who saw the whole world, who lived in two different civilizations, saw Pakistan and actually was probably one of the only Pakistanis who was adopted by another civilization, saw it from inside. So when anyone calls me anti-Indian or anti-American, I cannot imagine a civilized person being anti any nation. You can't be anti-American. It is not only uncivilized to be anti a nation, it is being ignorant. It's not being able to understand that human beings all over the world aspire for the same things. So therefore, I can't ever, and knowing the American society as I know the American society, and when I say West, how can you be anti-West? West is a geography. It's like being anti-Asia. How can you be anti-West? He's anti-Western. So I'm not anti-West or I'm not anti-Indian. I'm the one Pakistani who has had so much love in India that no other Pakistani has ever had. How can you be anti-Indian? So, we oppose the policies. When you oppose government policies, it does not mean you're anti the government. We are still suffering from the colonial hang-up, where there were the slaves and then there were the colonials. The slaves were not allowed to object to imperial policies. I'm afraid I never agreed with this war on terror and I never will accept this war on terror. It is anti-government, it's anti-human, it is anti-humanity. It's not a question of being anti-American. In fact, I think that of course we have a lot of, native Orientalists who keep on anything that is said by the imperial powers, they parrot in Pakistan. So for the moment, these fake liberals, they are only liberals. The only liberals in the world I know who are pro-war. I've never heard of a liberal who's pro-war except Pakistani liberals. And these human rights organizations. Where were these human rights organizations when we were heading towards Waziristan with human rights organizations from West? Where were the Pakistani human rights organizations? Because they did not have an NOC from the people who were funding them. So let me just say very clearly, we are, as someone who's a believer in all the